I appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you, and hopefully I'll be more polished, having just said some of this.
Absolutely.
So as you know, the library district is a small department, but we provide countywide service. We operate 5 branch libraries in rural locations and provide support services for the 7 municipal libraries across the county. We offer some services directly for the public, including a shared online catalog, ebooks and digital collections, access to research databases. We also provide home delivery of library materials to folks who aren't able to get to a library, some of whom live at home and some of whom are in assisted living type facilities. So we have 13 staff members, but several are part-time. So we're just under 10 full-time equivalents across 6 locations. That would be the 5 branches and our headquarters here in Bisbee. One of those positions is entirely on the road delivering to libraries, and one is mostly on the road delivering to people. The property tax revenue for the library district, which is a secondary property taxing district, was $1,638,029 this fiscal year, FY25. For FY26, we're looking at an increase of about 3% to $1,695,086, and this represents a change in valuations. The property tax rate hasn't increased. Yes, sir.
It may be, never. Forgive me.
Okay.
I was thinking about the regular levy and not the library district levy.
Yes, sir.
Never mind.
Okay. So this is this prediction is based on the rate remaining flat as it has in the past. So some of the big lines in our budget are salary and EREs. For this fiscal year, FY25, that comes to $705,000, $705,853. For FY26, we're looking at $777,818, and that mostly reflects an increase in the employee-related expenses. Some of our other big lines are flat or very close to it, and that includes books, dues, and subscriptions, which would be print books, ebooks, anything that checks out, essentially, at just under $300,000. Operating leases and rentals includes the software system that we use to operate the libraries, inventory control, checking materials in and out, maintaining the patron database. Yes, sir.
Which areas of the county, if you know, do not have broadband coverage?
So every library in the county does have broadband, and all 5 branches do. But some of the residential areas nearby do not, and some of them don't have good cell coverage either. Mm-hmm. So that has been really challenging, and it's meant that the internet services at those branch libraries in locations where residential coverage is poor has been especially important because a lot of folks don't have good access at home. I know that's something that the board has been looking at and where Joe has been really active. But in the last fiscal year, more than 38,000 computer and Wi-Fi sessions were offered at those rural branch locations. So people do use it a lot, and we're very lucky that our internet provider out there worked with us to increase speed several years ago so we can offer that good service.
Okay. Does that include outside the library?
It does.
Okay, so
in
their cars or something?
Yes, sir. The Wi-Fi is available from outside all the buildings. At most of our locations, it's available from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, even if the library is not open. And people do use it. The hours are slightly lower in some sites because there were the partner that owns the building had some concerns and wanted to more closely match the library hours. But the signal's nice and strong outside the library. We've even had people connect to do job interviews and things from outside.
And Portal, they use it quite a bit, though.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Portal's really huge.
Portal actually sometimes it's had more Wi-Fi usage than any other location just because
there's no Wi-Fi anywhere else.
There's no Wi-Fi.
So how do you have Wi-Fi at the library?
So we've got broadband cable right to the library, and then we use that to power the Wi-Fi. And so there's not broadband available to some of those outlying residential areas around there. The houses are so far apart. It just hasn't paid to put it in yet. And I know that's one of the gaps that they've been looking to fill. But in the meantime, we're there doing our best. Any questions on that?
Not at this time.
Okay. But if you happen to be in any of those locations, hop on the Wi-Fi. Hopefully you'll be impressed with the speed.
Some of the portal really tall.
It is.
It's just zooms out of it, out of reach.
It really is. And that whole, there's a big stretch between Portal and Douglas where there's no cell coverage
Yeah.
either. So by the time you get to Portal, you really need to check your.
Yeah. Very true.
So for the coming fiscal year, we're hoping to continue with some of the branch library improvements that we've been working on. Those have been pretty modest, but appreciated. And if you've been to any of our branches in the last couple of years, hopefully you've seen some of those improvements. For instance, right now we're hoping to paint the exteriors in Bowie and Elfrida, which are both have been many, many years since they were painted. But we'd like to keep working on some of that stuff.
So you got like a branded color theme that you're trying to get across the mall so everybody sees it. It's the
That would be a lot of fun, and you can tell I love teal.
yeah.
But no,
I love teal too. You know.
we're aiming very practical. So the Bowie Library is currently a lovely shade of beige, and it will be a fresher shade of beige. The Elfrida Library is very faded blue, and it will be close to its original blue. So we're not looking to do anything fancy, but we would like the libraries to look nice in those communities where there's not a lot of county presence, and we want the people to know that it's important to us to have a nice space for them. So we're working on some computer updates for the public computers and those building and grounds things that I mentioned. With the digital collections, so ebooks, audiobook, digital magazines, over the last few years, we've put a lot of work into reducing wait times and ensuring a good selection. We hope to continue working on that. I'm really proud of what we've done so far, but that's a landscape that's shifting rapidly. The way that we purchase the ebooks changes from year to year. You know, maybe they're available for 24 checkouts and then they disappear from our collection. Mm-hmm. So we either have to buy them again or do without them. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's been interesting to navigate. Mm-hmm. We have reduced wait times a good deal in the last couple of years, and part of that's come at no cost by partnering with other library systems. So if you have a library card with us, you can check out digital materials from 10 other library systems in Arizona. That's been really nice. It's almost statewide. It doesn't include Maricopa County. We wish it did. But Pima County, Yavapai, lots of other counties and collectives of libraries are in it. And it's really a fantastic thing to fill some of those gaps that we just don't have the bandwidth to fill ourselves. So in terms of long-range planning, we know that this new board has taken office with a lot of moving parts to look at and a lot on your plates. So it hasn't been a rush, but we are hoping to have some guidance from the board on what our long-range planning should look like. Over the last few years, we've done a headquarters move. We've had some other big changes that I think put us in a good position to do some good stuff in the future, but we want to make sure that it aligns with the board's vision, of course, and is making the best use of the resources that we have. So we'd like to do some analysis of community needs and growth patterns and really look at what the need for library services will be in the years to come, rather than just planning based on the way things have always been. So we do have a couple of challenges for the upcoming fiscal year. The changes in federal library funding don't have a big impact directly on our budget. That hasn't been a major source of funding for us. It does have a big impact on services that we rely on, and that's still a developing picture in terms of what gaps there will be and how we'll look at filling them. So the state library provides a lot of collections and tools that we rely on and a lot of professional development. And if those services aren't available from the state library, some of those are things that we might be able to absorb without too much pain, and some of them are things that we might need to do without. But that's shifting in real time, and it's interesting to see how that will shape up. The library development branch of the state library provides things like the Library Leadership Institute that we just had a staff member attend for a week, the Summer Library Institute that we've had many staff pass through over the years. So they've provided a lot of value for us, and we've not had to put a lot of funds into staff development because that's been right there for us to use. Another challenge that we've got, we've weathered several retirements in the last couple of years of key positions. We've managed to fill them, but we have more retirements coming up, including some really long-serving staff that will be difficult to replace. So we're looking at recruitment and retention, and that's part of what we're thinking about in terms of salary and EREs in the future. So I had to end with a cute picture, if you know me. We're doing good stuff at the library. We hope to continue, and we hope you'll come see it. And of course, I'm happy to answer questions now, but I'm also happy to talk anytime. And if you've ever got citizens with questions we might be able to help with, please send them straight to me.
Can you just tell me what your role, it's portal, you said,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
do you have it somewhere?
I do. So it's on that little map on the front.
That is like counting. Perfectly square.
Okay. Anything that's not,
It prints a little dark there.
that's the headquarters here,
So
okay.
the ones in, oh, thank you. The ones in District 2 are Elfrida and Portal are the branches we operate.
Okay.
And then the municipal libraries in District 2 are Bisbee, Douglas, and Tombstone.
How much do you think you help them? I mean, do you,
Actually,
10%, 20% of what they do?
it's difficult to put a percentage on it, but it's substantial. We don't run those libraries. So we don't staff them. We don't pay for their buildings or anything like that. But we provide the software that all of the libraries use to check materials in and out, to know what they own, to keep track of patrons. And because we've been providing that software since the 90s, when those systems went online, we're able to do it very efficiently. We just in the last few months have looked at what the pricing might look like if a library went out on their own and wanted to just provide that software for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And a big library like Sierra Vista, it would cost them more to go out and buy that software now than it costs us to provide it for the whole county, just because we've had it all this time.
And we don't charge them anything for this. This is a
We-
free service?
It's a free service, but the way that we're funded is interesting. So we're a secondary property tax that's a very modest amount, but people in the towns and cities pay into that as well. So essentially, it's a cooperative agreement where we're providing services, but they are being paid for. And what the cities provide for us is their collections. So each city, like Sierra Vista has a huge, wonderful collection. Douglas has a wonderful collection. The folks in our rural areas have access to all of that at their rural libraries, but they can also walk right into those city libraries and use their library card there. And a lot of them do. So we were looking at how much use our rural residents make of those town libraries directly. Like how often do people with library cards from us go in and check things out at those city libraries? And so it's about 10% of the amount that those rural patrons check out at their rural libraries. So they checked out more than 40,000 physical items at the rural libraries in the last fiscal year. And they checked out about 5,000 items just walking into those city libraries. Mm-hmm. It's a reciprocal agreement where I think both sides get a really good range of services. I moved here from Colorado, and there each library in our county was sort of an island that operated by itself. So there was a lot of duplication of services. There were things where, we were a really good library, but we only had what was in our building. And to get anything from outside, there was a process. It had to come in the mail. One of the reasons I was excited to move here and work in libraries here is that we're able to offer a much higher level of service because of this coordination. So we also offer the courier service between the libraries. That benefits the cities, of course, but it also benefits us. Because if you're looking at a library like Portal that has 6,000 items, that might sound like a lot, but it's very tiny. So if you live in Portal, let's say you're homeschooling your kids in Portal, you've got access to the 200,000 items that are around the whole county. And I'm really proud of that. That was always, that's been a factor for many years. We've always shared materials, but we've raised the level at which we're sharing them in the last 8 years, and pretty excited about it.
Got a financial question for you.
Yes, sir.
So, do you take contributions, donations? People give you money as well?
We don't accept money directly as the library district. But
Okay, do you have like Friends of the
we
Library?
sure do.
Okay.
So the Friends of the Library do things like support summer reading programs. Actually, in the next 2 weeks, they'll be sponsoring children's presenter to go to the 4 elementary schools that are close to our branches to get kids excited about the summer reading program. But the Friends are paying for that, no taxpayers.
So they're just a private nonprofit?
They are.
Okay.
So they've been around since 1986 when the library district was founded, and they raise money to support, especially children's programs. Like that picture of the little guy in the blue 1,000 books before kindergarten t-shirt, the Friends of the Library sponsor that program and buy the little t-shirts. So we can accept donations through the Friends, and then several individual libraries have their own Friends groups, like Sierra Vista has a wonderful Friends group, Benson, even a couple of our branches have their own little Friends groups to raise money and support the libraries.
So when the property tax revenue comes in, goes in the treasurer's office, and she's making her 4%, she so proudly proclaims, does she get a piece of that? Or does that 4% go?
Yeah.
She doesn't get a piece of
She
that.
gets her
She gets her interest revenue.
She gets the interest revenue. That's what I'm getting at. So she does get it. Okay, good. Good.
Answering a different question.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, so Ms. Traylor came in and talked about how she's very cautious with the way she invests tax dollars, which I'll give her credit for. And she gets about a 4%. Now she's getting 4%. Back in the day, she was getting a half percent. But I just want to make sure that whatever your 1.5 million that gets invested, as you're drawing it out, that rest of that money is parked somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Gaining 4%, you're getting that 4%.
It's modest, but it does come.
They do get a fairly good amount.
You
You can buy a bunch of books with that, probably.
I'm sorry, 15,000.
How much does she get?
15,000.
Oh, that's not modest.
That was some extra zeros.
I know that I put in.
She gets 15,000 in interest?
Well, no, she actually gets more than that. This year she's gotten $48,535.
Well, there you go, man. That's almost a full-time employee. Pretty good.
Because it's been performing well, we increased her budget.
Are we allowed, I don't know if the law lets us, are we allowed to do perpetual trusts here at the county?
Don't know. Is it like a revolving fund?
So like charities do it all the time, right? So what you do is you put, for example, she gets interest revenue, right? So she gets 45 grand a year. She puts that in a trust. The trust gets invested separately by a trustee or trustees. It generates interest revenue, investment revenue as well. That interest revenue then goes back gets reinvested back into the trust, so the trust grows. And then after a certain amount of time, you're able to draw down a percentage, which is usually about half of whatever the interest generated is. So there's always that other half going back in to grow. What's that?
Like an endowment, kind of.
Like an endowment, yeah. So it keeps growing. It's a perpetual trust. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it self-funds to a point where you don't have to tax people, and there's enough money in there to run the library. It would take probably 40 years, but it eventually gets there.
So that is something that the water district is working at for the Upstate Victor Partnership.
Yeah.
Like an endowment, but that wouldn't be directly within the county, but the county
Does
membership.
it violate the gift clause or something?
I think it would be a separate entity aside from the county. Not county controlled, but you'd have to have a separate entity with a separate board of trustees for such an entity. I'm just thinking,
Well, I'm thinking too. I'm just trying to think future
right.
down the road. If there's a way to generate revenue and then get it off the tax roll, and then you get a self-perpetual trust, it'll take 40 years. I mean, we'll all be gone probably by then, but eventually you'll be able to generate enough revenue where the interest revenue generated from the fund will pay for all the services of the library. Then you don't have to.
According to Google.
What did Google say?
Google says yes, special districts in Arizona can have endowments. Arizona law, specifically ARS 35.
How do you like that?
403 establishes the Arizona Endowment Trust Fund. Endowment and trust, which allows for participation of state agencies,
The
political.
library district's a perfect
Yeah.
perfect special district. Special district.
State treasurer. So we can read more about that. Maybe that's
Well,
something.
what I'm saying is that 45 grand, if she throws that in the endowment and you never touch that, yeah, that money goes in. And then whatever it generates, she could take half of that, which would probably be a couple $1,000, but the other half goes right back in the endowment, plus the next 45 grand, and the next 45 grand, then under Einstein's principle of compounding interest being the most powerful force in the universe, eventually it grows into several $1 million trust fund, and then you could fund your whole library off of that fund. It's going to take a while, but I mean, I bet you I can amortize that out on an Excel spreadsheet, tell you how long it would take you to get there.
Something that Amity and I have been talking about is what to do with the contingency that's rather large.
Yes,
Yeah.
Do what?
the contingency on
fund,
page, I was
um,
going to ask you about that.
And
Yes, I'm glad.
that's where we're
Page
talking
3.
about future planning.
Page 3,
Yeah,
1.9.
that
Right.
is what we're thinking about when we're talking about future planning.
What is this contingency from?
So this is interesting. The library district has always had some contingency fund. So that's money that hasn't been spent from year to year that is set aside for future expenses, emergencies, things like that.
Roof needs to get fixed, or
Yeah.
air
So
conditioner blows up.
we're not part of the general fund. So we have always self-funded that.
Right.
From 2013-14 to 15-16, after the last economic crisis, the contingency fund was spent way down.
Yeah.
So in 13-14, it was almost $800,000, which was healthy. And then in that little period of a few years, it was spent down to more like 350,000. And the reason for that was that the levy was dropping throughout that period, and the library district was making cuts, but not
Enough to cover the
correct.
revenue loss.
So at the time that
Rainy day fund.
at the time that I came to the county in late 2016, the library district had been in the red for a couple of years. And the biggest single expense there was that we had a bookmobile at that time, a wonderful service, but a horrible monster of a vehicle that was incredibly expensive. At the time I came, it was running 100% in the red. And that's how we took out giant chunks of contingency the 2 or 3 years before I arrived. So when I came, we did discontinue that service, unfortunately. The vehicle was reaching the end of its life and usage was dropping. We really wanted to turn that around and rebuild the contingency, which we did. Then in the next couple of years, it was clear that we were going to need to move. We were in the old high school in Bisbee. The building had historic building problems. The county wanted to no longer own it, get it back on the tax rolls, and was looking at selling. At that time, it looked like we would need to purchase a building. So we aggressively saved money. So we've got this contingency sitting there. It turned out we didn't need to buy a building. So then as we looked at what to do with it, we had some good ideas that I think would improve services, but they would not be possible with the very light staffing that we've got now. And that's where we'd like guidance from the board going forward, because the contingency fund is rebuilt ideally, and stop me if I'm wrong on the amount here.
That's something to, I mean, kick around. I mean, eventually you could grow it to quite an endowment. And then the endowment, even taking 50% of the dividend every year, could be enough to run the whole system once it gets to several $100 million, you know, and then you're going to get $4 or $5 million a year, which by then will be what inflation will probably be. And then you can run the whole thing off of that. There will come a time.
So that's an interesting idea, and that's the kind of strategic direction that we're hoping to get from the board going forward. We would like to keep some contingency fund for the reasons that
Well,
you
you can
usually
spend-
would, but that would be more like $850,000, which would be half a
When you-
year of
When you set up
revenue.
the rules of the trust, you can segregate funds within that. Because a buddy of mine and I started a charity for wounded special operations soldiers years ago. Task Force Dagger, if anybody wants to go look. So we get donations from corporations, we get donations from individuals, and then we put it all into an endowment. Some of that comes out to obviously pay for services for guys. Guys get cancer and all sorts of weird things happen. But what we do is we have it segregated where this part of the fund you don't touch. That fund is growing. That is designed to grow. This is the part of the fund that you're going to drop funds down in emergencies. It's an emergency contingency fund within the endowment. And then this over here is the one that you do your business, your normal
Sure.
business of. So you break it out in such a way that you could do it that way. But the net total goes into that dollar amount, and that's the way you break it out based on the dividend that's in there. But you have that in your rules and bylaws that allows you to tap, if you need to, pull that money out of the trust to go build a building or whatever. But then it's basically 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and you could set it up that way. I mean, or you could set up any way you want. It's up to your, I guess it would be us, the library board. We're the library board, but I mean, that's a way to eventually get it off the tax rolls, and then you can get rid of the special district and then just have them be a self-funded, do whatever they want entity. And then you could dissolve the library district board and just let her run the damn thing. Well, her daughter or granddaughter run it, because it's going to take a while. But if everybody started doing that, I tried doing that at the state once before with a couple other entities to try to get it off the tax rolls that weren't really a function of government. You know what I mean?
One other just data point related to the contingency and how that has worked over the last few years is that the levy didn't recover to 2010 levels until 2024. So we did, I mean, the measures we took to get back to healthy and above that were aggressive. And we still have 3 fewer FTEs than we did before the recession. And we're doing okay with it. I mean, I think we're providing good service, but it's pretty lean, and that's where the contingency comes from.
So your cash carry forward,
It matches the contingency.
it matches
So,
the contingency.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the real property, that's the building that you.
so actually under revenue, the real property
Well, that's the
is
tax
the tax
she
base.
gets.
The tax,
Yes, ma'am.
and delinquent.
All right. Bernie, thanks for,
And if it's like that's just like all the little programs that you do.
Yeah,
Summer.
so things like summer reading, all the crazy supplies that go with that. My office is stacked with them at the moment. Anywhere.
So this is like, painting, paint, all that.
Yes, ma'am.
any other questions?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for your time.
Our next meeting is going to be tomorrow morning at 9:00. And yeah, public health budget season, public health here in the hearing room tomorrow. See you guys there. We are adjourned.